I'm ready to slash and burn.
No quarter. I am going to be uncomfortable and all over you from start to finish.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. And, when we're talking about robots that generate a lot of buzz, I will say from having participated in the May NHRL event, there was a robot that generated quite a bit of buzz leading up to that event, and certainly it was warranted considering the robot was the winner of the 3-pound division in the entire event, and that is Droopy. And I am here with Tommy, who is the builder of Droopy, to talk about this amazing robot. So welcome to the show. How do you feel about your robot being inevitable?
That meme has been circulating for 3 years. Now, I'm amazed that that is, still generating such a buzz. And, I sometimes I think about it. I'm like, maybe this was inevitable, All the things in my life just culminated in this one moment.
It may have, but let's kind of go back a ways, because since I, haven't got the chance to talk to you before, and for fans that, may not know, I really want to hear the backstory on Droopy and like how this came to be in the first place.
Absolutely. So this actually goes back pretty far because I've been part of the sport ever since 2016. So I've definitely been around the block. I've made a fair share of robots. But the reason why Droopy exists is there are a couple different reasons, but the main one is that I was getting sick of losing to Calviniba, because there was a point in time where the two most dominant builders in the Southern California region were essentially just me and Calvin. I would fight with my robot Explosion. It was an undercutter made of TPU, and Calvin would fight Lynx, and we would always just have this rivalry, event after event. And I couldn't figure out any way to even match that, because Calvin's just such an amazing builder and designer, and he got that robot so dialed in. And it took me a long time to be able to put the pieces together to be able to design a Droopy. And I essentially, there were a couple gyroscopic walkers floating around, and at the time, this was around 2019 or so, there was this one really cool one I saw called RMBK, and I was also just trying to, figure out what strategies would work against Calvin. And essentially, my strategy boiled down to just pure chaos, because if I cannot predict what my robot's going to do, neither can you. So it came to me all one night, and I was like, where I finally put all the pieces together, and I stayed up the entire night just writing down every single thing. Like, oh wait, it has to, have these massive weapons that everyone will be terrified of. It has to have a face. It has to have some personality. It has to be something that has a butt. And essentially, all of the things that I build, I want people to remember. And I basically put my own spin on the gyroscopic walker concept and made it into something that was really mine.
Yeah, which ended up being something very awesome. Now, you obviously had some success with it a few years ago, and then it was kind of not heard from for a while. So, I'm really curious what, you were doing during that time and what made you decide to finally bring it back.
So, sort of, when I first started fighting with Droopy, it was basically the most successful robot that I had created up to that point. And, I just kept winning events, essentially between, November and December, was when, well, backing up a little bit, it took probably 9 months to a year to really come up and test concept of Droopy, it took a lot of effort to be able to do that. And in November, I essentially just showed up and I started winning, and this was very weird. So I basically used that momentum that I had built up for the past couple of months to sort of carry myself all the way to finals. And definitely during finals, I was juggling with a lot of things at the time, and I definitely, I was juggling with school, I was juggling with personal issues, and I was also trying to win Norwalk. And these things just all culminated together, and they put such an enormous burden on me that I had to take a break for a while, and I definitely slowed things down. So for the next 2 years or so, I essentially took a bit of a break from combat robots and pursued other hobbies. I pursued FPV quadcopters. I pursued pottery and a couple other things because I really like making things. So um, that took a little while, but now I'm back and I'm very excited. Now I definitely feel like I'm more excited to uh, participate in the sport of combat robotics again. So, I'm definitely excited to see what happens going forward.
Yes, it was a great time to come back because things, in my time following NHRL have certainly, expanded, and there's a lot of growth and things like that going on. So it's very exciting. Now, as far as the May event, first I have to like share with you as somebody on the outside that knew nothing about Droopy. I'm in this Discord and I just see people like all of a sudden saying, "Oh my gosh, like Droopy signed up," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? What's Droopy?" And just seeing all of these people so like excited / terrified at the same time, and being like, well, now this is the most exciting thing that's going to happen at this event, is seeing what Droopy's going to do. And I think that's where the whole inevitable memes kind of started to recirculate, and it kind of just came to pass. And you were able to get through and win the event in the 3-pound division, which was very difficult because there were a lot of just amazing robots. I mean, it like for being away for that long and having that much success right away coming back into an event, I'm just curious what your thoughts and feelings were after that happened.
Yeah, I definitely have not been slacking when it's come to Droopy upgrades. So the main thing is just that, slowly over time, I've been iterating and making all of these little changes that I know would be helpful, especially during the event. But the biggest thing that I have to say and that I have to comment about the Nowak field is that Nowak robots are getting really scary. There are so many good robots showing up, and just being part of the NHRL experience and seeing just the robots showing up event after event, getting better every time, and having to fight against that is just exhilarating. It's really nice to be back.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I think that Norwalk is such a fun place because you have, the competitive robots, and you have the robots that are just there to have fun. And you have some that are kind of in between. And I think that there's a place there for all of those types of robots. And it's just so fun to see from one match to the next how that's going to go, because sometimes you just really never know.
Yeah, exactly. And part of that uncertainty is what keeps everyone on their heels.
Yes, exactly. It doesn't matter what opponent you get in the next round. You can't go in there just thinking that you're going to cruise through.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun, obviously. Now, since you've qualified at this point, are you just kind of waiting until the championships come around, or do you plan on doing any additional events in the meantime?
There definitely are events that I want to continue iterating at because there are still some upgrades that I need. There were some very close calls at that last event. So, now is the time for me to just go and iterate more and work on some upgrades. So, I'm definitely going to be at Open Sauce, which is coming up this July 15th and 16th. That's going to be a fun event. I've already signed the robot up, so, definitely check Droopy out there.
Yes, I'm sure that a lot of people will be interested to watch that one. I do want to talk a little bit about, your experience at BattleBots, because you got to be part of Team Horizon, and which is just, to me, also such a cool robot. I mean, I love the design so much. How was it though, like just being there for that experience? Because it's very different than NHRL in a lot of ways because of the whole, production aspect of filming a TV show.
Absolutely. And essentially, like, I've been part of a couple other teams as well. I've actually been around participating in BattleBots ever since 2016. Initially with Team Warhawk, and basically, I've been competing most of the years with the different teams since. So, participating with Team Horizon this year was also definitely very interesting because that robot has so many parts. It is uh, amazing how much they were able to cram into a single robot. And essentially, that experience of working at BattleBots is very stressful compared to the NHRL because the stakes are so much higher. And also, fundamentally, heavyweights are dumb. The amount of things that go into a heavyweight, especially a successful and competitive one, or even just getting it to work, is ridiculous. And compared to something that's 3 pounds, it's basically a crazy amount. And there are so many little things that also go into it, so many thousands of parts that have to be worked on. It's just quite the experience compared to smaller robots.
Yes, for a number of reasons. And it's so interesting because I was just talking to a couple of builders recently about that, the fact that a 30-pound robot is actually a lot closer to the heavyweights in
Mhm.
similarity than it is to a 3-pound robot that can primarily be made with, TPU and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I actually found that interesting because I wouldn't have thought that, but now after it's been explained, I'm like, okay, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely, because size-wise, a 30-pound robot is essentially about a half scale, just based on volume. Because like if you look at other builders like Jameson Go, like and Megatron's basically like a half scale replica of Sawblaze, and he goes and he kicks ass with it.
Yes. There is a reason why he wins all of the things. And I think that just shows like the hard work and dedication. And like you mentioned about, iterating the robot. It doesn't matter if you've just won, an event. There's still more work to be done
Mhm.
because by the time you get to championships, everyone else is probably going to also be iterating on their robots, and then at that point you have to kind of catch up with that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's even though there's a couple months, like a couple events just before the final event, you don't know who's going to show up. There could be someone that shows up and just absolutely sweeps every robot. And am I confident this year for my odds? No, not at all. It's going to be a coin flip, and I'm just glad to be a part of it.
100%, for sure. And I have to say, I know that you obviously have, some Droopy merch, but if you actually made a shirt with Droopy on it that said, "I am inevitable," I would be the first person in line to buy that shirt. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a fun concept, and I think that's what I love so much about it, is because you've managed to make a robot that is both fun and scary, and that's so rare. Usually it's just one or the other, and you've managed to do both, so I think that's great. I mean, have you had any other crazy ideas for a robot? Since you have this one, is there anything else swimming around up there that you would like to potentially do in the future?
Oh, absolutely. There are some robots that I've been prototyping for a couple years, and I'm working on it. But it's just it suffers from the droopy problem of I don't know how long this is going to take, so I'm just going to keep working on it until it's done. So yeah, there's another robot that I'm working on that will make its NHRL debut at some point. I don't know if this year or maybe next year, but stay tuned for that.
I absolutely will. And another thing that I wanted to ask you about, because it didn't used to be, I mean, granted, I've only been following NHRL for about a year now, and I've been following BattleBots for much longer, but where you didn't see as many robots with like an unconventional type of setup, in terms of motion or what have you. They were usually very straightforward. And now I think you're seeing more and more, because one builder gets inspired by another builder. I mean, I've done so many interviews lately of other folks from NHRL talking about kind of making robots inspired by that droopy type of mechanism. Is that an exciting thing for you, that you've brought something to the sport that now other people recognize as something that's unique and effective, and want to also kind of come up with their own ways of doing that?
Yeah, like just seeing the ingenuity that people have in trying different forms of locomotion, it's just amazing to me, and I'm very glad that people are inspired by me, because I'm also inspired by those people, because I look at their designs, I'm like, wow, that is cool. I wish I invented that, and it just makes me want to continue iterating and making new, novel, and cool things.
Yes, we need more of that.
Yeah.
I always like to say all robots are awesome robots, but at the same time, something that is different is certainly going to catch my eye and make me want to say, what is that? And I want to know how that works. And I think that the more that we see that, the more people will become interested in the sport and find it something that they want to watch and know more about.
Yeah, definitely. And I will say it took me a while to even understand how my own robot worked, because all I knew was that, oh, okay, I tested it and it worked. But the biggest thing, I think, is just encouraging people to seek that out themselves when they see, wait, that robot's winning. I have to research this robot. If we can get it in their head, if we can get Droopy in their heads, whether it be the face or the butt, or how big the weapons are, I think that's a win, because then it's forcing them to learn about this robot and prepare for it, or even create the next Droopy.
Definitely. And yeah, I mean, the one thing about Droopy is that, yeah, I think that so many people struggle with, how do I even fight it? Like, what is my strategy even going to be? And I'm sure that when you designed it, that you had that in mind, that people would struggle to find a way to defeat it. Have you ever gone against a robot? Or, I mean, obviously I know you mentioned Lynx before, and kind of designing Droopy was a solution to that, but I mean, aside from Lynx, has there ever been another robot where you were like, I need to figure out how to beat this thing?
Definitely. And most of the time, like, the main question is, what kind of benefits does a Droopy have versus other designs? And essentially, my strategy boils down to chaos, just the pure embodiment of chaos. If I can be unpredictable, then and keep those weapons spinning, what are you going to do? So there have been a couple of robots, especially recently, that I've have gotten very close, and definitely the move forward is figuring out how to counter those. Like, for example, the fight against Caldera, what most people didn't see is how close my motors came to seizing, and Caldera hits very hard. So that's one thing on the menu that I have to address.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, especially considering that Caldera will also be at NHRL championship, so there could be a rematch in the future that you have to prepare for.
Absolutely. But that's part of what makes the sport fun. It's always this rock, paper, scissors game. It's always this game of, oh, okay, I just need to optimize this part of my robot. And at the end of the day, that's what, all builders want, is if I can reach the peak of what this design represents, what would that be like?
Yes, absolutely. Now, I have to ask this question because so many people have brought it up, but you know, have you ever conceived of a 250-pound version of Droopy?
Yes, I have. Absolutely, I have. And there's a couple SolidWorks assemblies just sitting there, just titled Droopy Heavyweight, 1 through 4 or whatever. And the main thing is just the scale. Like 250-pound robots are dumb. They're just, they're like, I essentially need a team and, back support to be able to work on one. So foreseeably, it may happen moving forward. It's just a matter of, uh, you know, is it really worth it for me right now? Like, debatable. If I found the means to do so, I'd probably start prototyping one, but it's very tricky to prototype at a 250 scale rapidly. And if the beetle weight took me 9 months, then, this one probably will take me significantly longer.
That is very possible. But if any sponsors are watching this, the world needs 250-pound Droopy. So let's make it happen. Well, yeah, that's awesome. I definitely cannot wait to see Droopy at the championships, and all of the other amazing robots that are going to be there. But yeah, I mean, it's safe to say that there's a lot of fans of your robot, and I just can't wait to see what else you come up with. If that's like the first big thing, like what else is there? So yeah, but I so appreciate you coming on the show and talking about Droopy, and we'll look forward to seeing what else you do.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to also see all of the different things that people come up with. If you are inspired by my robot, definitely make a robot of your own. That's the biggest thing, because this sport is fun at the end of the day. It just has so many different things that I feel like other hobbies don't have. It has that community, it has the competitiveness, and just that uncertainty is always there. And it's something that you just have to go and experience for yourself.
I agree 100%. As a person who didn't think that they could go into a competition and really do anything, yeah, I highly recommend anybody who's thinking about doing it, definitely build a robot, whatever. It's pretty, especially at the 3-pound level, it's very competitive, but it's also very accessible. But there's kits, it's pretty, pretty simple to do in that way. So yeah, for sure. Well, anybody who's watching, obviously, as I say at every show, keep supporting combat robotics. Like this show, subscribe, share, let me know what you want to see, and I'll try and bring it to everyone. So just keep watching, and we'll see everyone next time on the show.